tour. I will explain this project. It's funny because usually I don't have to explain because people usually know me for this, but I love it. So this exhibit is called The Invisible Wounds of Friendship. The idea is to explore ways in which, by our mere presence, we interfere in dogs' life, and how we may intentionally or not hurt them in many different ways. So of course, working in the animal rescue field, I see a lot of intentional cruelty and intentional wounds that are inflicted on dogs. But there's also a lot of ways in which maybe we interfere with the way they communicate, we don't listen to them well, we don't understand them, we get in the way. Also, we don't necessarily ask them what they want. The relationship is very one-sided in many ways. So a lot of this work explores this. How could we be better guardians and better, safer guardians of our dogs too? For example, if we want to pet them or hug them or kiss them, like, do we ask them if they want that? And if they say no, do we still do it? Guilty.
Yeah, she doesn't.
I mean, they're like, no, I mean, and you're like, come on, give me a kiss. At the same time, McLevin, no, you don't know that side of him, but if he wants to stick his tongue in your mouth, he'll do it. Whether you say yes or no, he's that guy. So the consent goes both ways, right? It's not just us being the bad guy. Okay. But still, those are interesting questions, I think, to ask ourselves. Like, how much agency does the dog have in the relationship? Are they only here to serve our needs, emotional or otherwise? Or do they get to have a life also for themselves? So that's like the umbrella idea of this exhibit. This series is what I'm known for. It's called Pitbull Flower Power. It's a series of shelter pit bulls. So all these dogs were in a shelter waiting to be adopted. When I took that photograph, I go to shelters and I set up a little photo studio. I built flower crowns and I put the flower crown on the dog and I photographed them with it. And so the image served as an adoption profile photo to help them find homes. But also the larger picture was to help destigmatize pit bulls, show their softer side, and just have people connect to them at an emotional level instead of thinking of the monster, the pit bull. The project was supposed to be just 5 images and then I was going to move on with my life, but it went viral immediately. Everybody wanted it.
You captured perfectly.
It was the great timing. It was 2014. I think it was the right time. Social media was really.
Do you mind?
No, please.
I mean, you're the photographer.
Oh yeah, no, absolutely. And so a lot of the photos led to adoptions. And I've done 450 portraits in the series since 2014. During the pandemic, I didn't do a lot because I needed a break, but also the shelters were close to the public, so I couldn't do
That's
work.
right.
But I had a crazy wait list of shelters just banging on my door, like, please come help us with our pit bulls, because across the country and the world, honestly, shelters are full of these dogs. Pit bull is not a breed, it's a look, and so you'll see in the series that a lot of dogs look very different, and it's hard to identify. Some of them are clearly, Staffordshire Terrier, or like they're a clear bully breed, but others are mixes, and it's a little unclear. So this project, anyway, that's that.
And they just sit there while you.
Everybody asks me that question, like, how is this? I think I forget how hard it is, because each time I do a shoot, I'm like, damn, this is hard.
But stay still.
Yeah. Sometimes, with photography, it only needs to last a second to get the shot. Sometimes they just sit there with the crown on. It really depends. These dogs, a lot of them, they're stuck in a cage all day, every day. And when you take them out, they're just so eager to want to be with you, to be touched, to be given instructions, and just to be a part of something. I would say like pit bulls especially are very human oriented. They're so eager to please humans and to be with them, which is also why people are able to fight them the way they do, because they will do anything for their people. They're very, very attached to people. So this project, I think, was made even easier by the fact that these dogs are just absolutely awesome.
It's a completely different view from the traditional, you have a pit bull.
Yeah. The flames, the chains.
This is like the face, the gesture, the smile. You capture the smile, the essence of the actual dog, not the breed.
Yeah, so it's also part of that.
That's a really good point. I love the way you put that.
It's about the individual, the individual stories, the individual dog, their own path. It's not about a breed, it's not about a group. It's what is the story of Ron, of Max, Holiday, Flower, Joey, they have a path, they came from somewhere, they lived something, and we should look at them for that. So we'll see more of pedophile power over there. This one I'm just going to go quickly. It's a rescue from the dog meat trade in South Korea. So it's one of the countries that actually raise dogs on farms to slaughter them and eat them like meat, the way we do for cows and pigs and here.
I knew China did, but I didn't know about South Korea.
Yeah, South
Yeah.
Korea. So that
They're
South
pretty
Korea,
big on them.
it's actually the only known country that actively like farms dogs. In other countries, they'll find them in the street. It's a little less like organized. In South Korea, they actually have farms. So I visited one of those farms in 2019,
Oh.
and I did a whole project, a whole series of
Oh my
portraits
God.
for Human Society International. So these dogs were all rescued and adopted. They basically shut down the farms. They work hand in hand with the farmer, who usually wants out of the trade, and then all the dogs are rescued. So Rosie was adopted. She's fine. She was adopted a few years back, and she's a senior, as you can tell. And that's part of that project.
How did you get this done? All this?
So if you come, you see I actually hand glued
Really?
all these little crystals. There's a bunch of them. You can see on the side here if you look.
Oh, I'm great at sparkly things. I
Oh,
can
I
see.
love. I'm like a little obsessed with the bedazzling process.
Yes,
It's
yes.
super relaxing. I love it. I completely get it.
And even this ribbon, it looks so real in the way that it shines there. And it's great.
Yeah, I used a lot of lights. For the first time, I had access to really big studios and a lot of lights, and so I had fun with these for sure.
Yeah, there's so much movement. Like,
Yeah. And the magic of you
Yeah.
you drape the dog, and then you never know how things are going to come together. And Rosie delivered for sure. So
Yeah.
I love that portrait. All right, I think we can move.
That is so much.
Yeah, there's a lot more to see, so maybe I should go a little faster for you guys. This is a series called Black Dog.
Oh, wow.
There's 3 here and 3 on the other side.
Awesome.
This was the first image, and I did it in 2014. The same year I did the flower dogs, and I knew I had something really special, but flower power was taking all my energy and time, and I thought I cannot carry both projects at once, so I had to put this one aside, and it took me 8 years to pick it up again. So I had to really like be patient with this series, and now I've been adding a few more images to the series.
So amazing.
Originally, it was supposed to be about black dogs because they're so stigmatized, and I wanted to show them in a very glorious way. But then I ended up adding a special dog of mine that I really love, and she's not black, so I was like, I need to rename the series. It's still called Black Dogs, and it really explores. I was raised Catholic, and so the symbolics is very rooted in my upbringing. I'm French, a very traditionally Catholic country, and those monotheist religions, they taught us that dogs were inferior and dirty, and
Yes.
there's something about all the like
They don't even belong in the home.
yeah, they don't belong in the home, and
Yes.
all the big religions taught us that. But if you look at before those religions existed, in all the stories, dogs were always very important. They were the guides to the souls. They had like a role to play in the life of people and guiding their souls in the afterlife when the human died. And we'll talk about that a little more. But so there's so many stories that are very interesting. And I also discovered that there was actually a dog saint in France, in a town very near to where I grew up, where my sister actually lives in that town now. Women would bring their babies, and a dog was supposedly a saint, and they had the bones, a grave for that dog, and they would bring babies to get healed and all that.
Really?
In the 13th century, the church discovered the cult, and they came in and they destroyed it. They burned the bones, and they say that witchcraft, women and
Right.
babies, because they wouldn't allow animals to be
Right.
saints.
Yeah.
So there's a lot of interesting stories, I think. So this is something I'm just starting to explore. But yeah, these
Thank you
images
so
are,
much.
and these images are currently being shown in Istanbul in Turkey, in a photo festival. So they're starting to have a little life of their own. I'm very excited.
And those, did you make those?
Oh, I make the, halo. I don't know how to call it.
Yeah, headpiece.
Yeah, the headpiece. Yeah,
It's
I make them.
gorgeous.
I love like making those props or accessories. I really enjoy that part of the process because we spend so much time on screens. It's nice to have a project that's
Did you make this as well?
Yeah, so the next piece is a little sad. We're entering in territory that's a little sadder. This is actually the shelter McLovin comes from in Puerto Rico.
Puerto Rico.
This is, Puerto Rico has a lot of stray dogs, and they have a few municipal shelters that act as population control, which means they don't really adopt dogs a lot because you can find them on the street. If you want a dog, you just open your door and you pluck a puppy off the street, right? So these places act more as like a place to
Like a kill shelter.
kill them. Yeah, to just process them. And so this mom and puppies were there when I was visiting, and they were going to euthanize the mom because nobody wants to adopt pit bulls really there. It's not the kind of dogs people want. And I said, why do you keep her alive? And they said, because she's nursing, so if we have newborns that come in, she can nurse puppies and we can use her while she nurses, because people might be more inclined of adopting a puppy. So I don't know what happened, but I'm fairly certain she didn't make it. Neither did her puppies, because that place is full of parvo, distemper, like diseases, and usually newborn puppies really don't make it. While I was there, I saw a lot of dogs that were in the process of dying. McLovin was in a cage, and like the cage over a puppy just died, and I literally like saw it happen, and I called the staff. I said, I think this puppy just died, and they said, oh yeah. They were like, they completely desensitized, and it's not to blame them. I think they see so much horror, and after a while, you just don't see it anymore. I was filming and taking photos, sobbing, and I remember staff looking at me and be like, oh wow, I'd forgotten, but I used to cry like this, and now I don't cry anymore.
Wow.
And it really hit me. Like, these people have to deal with horrifying things all day long, and it's literally, they had buckets of puppies, that they're like, yeah, we're just gonna euthanize them because there's nowhere for them to go. So these pieces are very intense.
I like how they
but it's the
put it
reality.
around just to capture at least the moments of
Yeah.
some kind of happiness there.
And the family,
Oh.
there's another piece over there
I'll show
that
you
is.
McLovin later.
Yeah, McLovin, he was there and he had given up.
And it totally makes sense how he
Yes.
can be.
When I saw him in his cage and I looked at him, he looked up and he told me, like, don't even bother. I know I'm dying here and I've accepted it. Like, he was
He
was there. I had never seen a puppy so, he was not sick, so it's not like he was sick. He had given up. And I looked at him and I said, not today, Babu, not today.
Oh.
But when you rescue one dog in a situation like this, you leave so many more behind. Like, it's always a struggle. But this is another piece that I made way before this one. This one I just did, but this one is from 2018. And it was just a dog at a shelter that was super high strung. And we're talking about, this piece is about, how in the rescue community we want to save lives at all costs. So we put them in cages and we find adopters and we keep them alive as much as we can, right? We don't want to euthanize them just for space. But the cost, saving a life at all costs, what does that mean? What is the cost and who pays that cost? Often I have photographed dogs that have waited in cages for 7, 8 years. 10 years was the longest. And so there's a lot of mental health issues that can come with. And so Connor here was adopted. He was fine. He just had a lot of energy and he was trying to say hi to people that were walking in the
Oh
kennels.
my God.
But this piece is about
Looks like
the stories that we tell ourselves. How, oh, it's amazing to save dogs. Yeah, but what does that actually mean? If you put a dog in a cage for 7 years, is that
You can
really
just save it.
saving?
It has to be more.
It has to
than
be
that.
more. So now it's, shelters do a lot of enrichment, meaning they bring dogs out to play, and so I think shelters are amping up their game a little bit, so it's better, but this was a very old school setup. This one, it's a hand embroidery, so it's all hand stitched. You can see, yeah. This took me 4 months to complete.
And
You do that?
I thought someone else had done it.
Yeah, it's like
It's very,
that's not right?
if you like bedazzling, you might like this because it's similar. It's very like meditative. This piece is about. It's called the theatrics of play fight. It's a little bit about, again, how humans interfere in the way dogs communicate. The dog on the left is modeled after a photo of a dog that was playing happily with another dog. The dog on the right is modeled after a photo of an actual dog fight in Afghanistan that is an organized dog fight. So the dogs were covered in blood, like it was and people are out betting, you know, on dogs. Like it's a whole system. But when you look at this image, it could go either way. And as humans, we don't necessarily know how to decipher the signs. We just see this embrace. These are two dogs from completely different paths of lives. One has been severely distorted by human actions and the human hands. The other one is just being his full self.
I can see one is totally clearly playing, the one on the left.
You can
one
see
on the
that?
right. It's like literally
Well, you
going for its life.
Yeah.
And you put it together, which one is it?
See, yeah, I wouldn't.
And people
be able to
wouldn't,
tell.
yeah, a lot of people don't know how to make the difference. Yeah.
Wow.
So, there's some more pitbull flower power here.
You do have a book calendar.
Yes, we have.
Oh.
I published a book a few years ago.
Like that one and that one.
Yeah.
And these are all in the book?
Yeah, these
Okay,
are.
great.
This is Tucker. He was actually one of my foster kids. I love him so
Yeah,
much.
of course
I
you did
wanted to keep
foster.
him.
What would I
You know,
be
I
surprised?
wanted to keep him so much, but I couldn't. Why don't we maybe
Yeah, please.
go around here and then we'll come back.
Yeah, you're the boss. You're the boss. If you think me, I forget it.
This is the series one I was telling you about with the X-rays.
This is the main one.
This is where you came from.
She gave me a preview of that one. And like amazing.
These are cyanotypes, which are prints that are made using sunlight. So I use special chemicals to coat the paper, and then I expose like a negative with using sunlight. I basically asked people and rescues to send me X-rays that they thought were cool or spectacular looking, and then I stitched bodies back together using X-rays from a whole of different stories. So you can see a lot of, you know, broken legs, and this one is pregnant. You can see all the little skulls and the spines. This is a dog that I actually crowned with flowers for my project, Halo. She had a really, really interesting story too. This one I went a little cuckoo because, you know, I had fun with it. All the different type of legs. This one was.
I'm sorry.
Yes.
What's going on here?
Well, maybe one can tell you. Is this arthritis? I was wondering, or something like that. I don't know. It could also.
That's
there.
broken.
Like those
Yeah.
those are
there.
fractures, but there.
And that one, it looks more of a lot of the arthritis.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking. Yeah.
And have a
And this
repairing
one, yep,
here.
and repair, another break here.
Broken
Goodness.
fibula,
Yeah,
broken femur. Whoa, this is like,
there's a lot.
is this alive, this dog?
This
Because
is
that
a-
shouldn't be alive.
No,
they're
this
different.
is, these are different dogs that I put together. So
Yeah.
every X-ray is a different dog.
Got it.
This one has a broken jaw.
That's right.
This one is the first X-ray that I received. This dog is named Teddy. He came to rescue, and they did X-rays because they thought maybe he had arthritis. And once they got the images, they realized his body was covered in bullets, and these are buckshot. His entire body was like this. And this really prompted me to create those images, and it prompted the title of the exhibit, The Invisible Wounds of Friendship, because you would have never known that he had all this buckshot all over his body until you did those X-rays.
Oh.
He was not, I mean, they left them where they were. It's
Like little BBs.
It's like little beads, like BB gun, but a lot of them, I guess. I'm not-
Usually it's like the big shotgun, and
Yeah.
they shot one bullet, and that bullet exploded and spread into.
So we see actually in rescue a lot of bullets in dogs, like especially in the South, Alabama, like yes, it's quite common to X-ray a dog, and you're like, oh, that dog has a bullet somewhere in there, and yeah, it's, yeah. So,
Oh my goodness.
and these big prints were a very big undertaking. It took me months to figure out the logistics for this.
You know, I was just thinking that your work is not just what's presented. There's so much time and effort and like careful attention that goes to how you present each one.
Yes, I tried. Yeah.
Like
Thank
that
you.
is amazing. I've never
Thank
seen
you.
that in anything else.
Oh, you're so sweet. Thank you so much. That's very
Likewise.
sweet of you.
That is amazing.
Yeah. I'm
It's
a little
like, it's
obsessed
like an
with-
entire creation within itself.
Yeah, this one was a big one. It took a lot of testing and also those big prints. They look small on this wall because the wall is so big, but like, you know.
Oh, no,
yeah.
That's why
And it
each
happens-
one together.
Yeah,
And with a sun.
Yes, those prints they expose in like 3 minutes. it goes very fast. When you're like writing a huge print and the sun, like it's very physical. So yeah, these prints were, they might not look like they were a challenge. They were a big challenge to make.
To me, it looks like it has a whole life in its own.
Yeah.
Its energy and it's like a different essence within and in composition with what is shown.
Well, thank you. Thank you for saying that. There's another one here that got a lot of attention on social media because I put an X-ray of a Frenchie next to a regular shaped dog. Frenchies are very popular, flat-faced dogs in general are very popular, and when you look at the X-ray, I think we can all immediately see that something is awfully wrong.
Yes.
These dogs are bred purposely with those flat skulls, and in many cases, the skull is too tight to fit the brain and the eyes, the airway, everything, and these dogs suffer tremendously. Yeah.
They're born by C-section.
Yeah, most of them cannot mate naturally, they have to have insemination, and they cannot birth naturally, they have to have C-sections. For like bulldogs, French bulldogs, pugs, Boston Terriers, I think it's over 90% of pregnancies have to be via C-section. So most of these dogs are born with a heavy hand from humans. If they were in nature, they wouldn't survive more than a generation. I mean, it would be impossible. And a lot of them are born with breathing issues. They just don't have enough room for their tissue. So when you hear them snort or snore, people think, oh, it's so cute, he makes all these little sounds. It's actually because they're suffocating every day.
Goodness.
Some of them have to sleep sitting up because if they lay down, they suffocate. And there's a lot of the owners are kind of unaware of this because we've been sold on the idea that these dogs, oh, that's what they do. They're cute, they don't like to walk. When it's too hot, they don't want to go outside. But that's because they're suffocating. So of course they don't want to walk. But we call them lazy or stubborn. Oh, my dog is so stubborn, he refuses to go on walks. It's because your dog cannot breathe. And we need to reframe, and we need to be able to be open-minded enough and curious enough to understand, maybe I'm missing something. If my dog doesn't want to walk, maybe he's in pain, and one, you would know more than anyone else. There's a lot of signs that we're missing because we dumb humans.
That's why I'm gonna marry him because
he's a little smarter than most humans.
Not to mention the spinal compression on the spine because they're like so short on body, so they always have like some kind of disc.
This dog, his name is Arnie, and he was actually bred by a very serious breeder that we would consider reputable, responsible. Like she's been breeding for 40 years. She shows dogs. She's supposed to be the best of the best. And his spine is S-shaped.
Really?
He had airway surgery to be able to breathe, and his brain is leaking out of his skull. Like he's a horrifying mess. So this piece is about that. I think it's a very strong visual.
The elbow is already outside, and the spine is like this much instead of being like this.
oh, you're so hot.
You're so cute. All right, these are just little paws.
I'm applying what I do now. Sorry, please continue.
Lucy, she survived. She's fine. This is an X-ray that the family sent me. They were at home, and somebody broke into their garage and was faced with their 6 dogs. And he had a knife, and he stabbed Lucy in the face. They rushed her to the vet. She's fine. She didn't even lose an eye. Now she's 13 years old, completely healthy, fine. So everything is good. But they sent me the photo, and she's sitting on the back seat of the car with the knife sticking out, and she's just looking like, oh, what?
Oh my gosh.
They caught the guy, and he was charged with animal cruelty. He was convicted to 2 years later, he received an 8-year deferred sentence.
Oh gosh.
And then he had to pay restitution, probably for vet bills, I would assume. And then he served 12 weekends in county jail. So
that's ridiculous.
Wait, don't we get to stab him?
the guy who stabbed what?
Wait, we don't get to stab him?
Exactly
No.
right.
It should be a lease, you know?
No, that's not what we do.
Eye for an eye.
No, but you know, it is kind of scary to think, because he came into somebody's home with knives, with ill intention, but because it was an animal, it's just not considered. Our laws are very.
He will be already years
Yeah.
prison.
This piece is called "You Cannot Claim." It's interactive, so you can touch or you cannot touch. The choice is yours, and you can decide what you want to do with it.
That is amazing.
And it says you cannot claim who hasn't given themselves to you. And it's again about, you know, being a rescue person. I feel like
just
my
gave
dog.
me the chills.
My dog chooses me a little bit. I give him the option at the shelter. Do you want to come with me? When you buy a dog from a breeder and you buy on the catalog, basically, you program, oh, I want this dog to be impregnated so I can get a puppy. How much choice has the female, the male who are mating? How much choice is given to the puppy in which family they end up? And this piece is about consent also. If you pet the fur, it's also again about.
Yeah, and now I just feel even guiltier about my purse. I'm like, I claimed that animal.
Yeah, I mean, yes, as humans, we claim others. We claim others every day, everywhere, and I think we can think a little deeper about what that means and what that looks like.
That's very powerful statement there, phrase.
How did you come up with this?
That's what she does.
That's what she does. But I mean,
More embroideries.
That's the mind of the artist.
This is based on an intake photo at the shelters. So when the dogs come in, they are quickly photographed to get an ID photos for the system. Very often in overcrowded shelters like in LA and big cities, it's the last photo you'll see of that dog, because if they euthanize, or like this is the last image. And a lot of these photos, the dogs are terrified or sick or just nervous. So I decided to do a series of embroideries with them to stay with them a little longer. So this is all hand stitched. This is based on the photo that I took in Miami at the shelter. This is in Puerto Rico on a puppy.
oh, I'm just dumbfounded by your talent.
Oh, thank you.
It's amazing.
There's more than photographs. I mean, you say about, well, I'm a photographer and I do this, but this is a different whole level.
And what about the top one? So we can
The top one is Blossom. She's a dog that I followed for years. Yeah. So she was returned to the shelter 4 times over the 6 years I knew her. And this was the last time she came back to the shelter in 2020. She's the golden one in the middle there. She was very sick and old, and her family, it was very sad, and she had given up on humans. She was very shut down, and this image for me is very much how she was at the shelter. She got fostered by a dear friend of mine, and she got her life back.
Really?
Yeah, she passed away recently, but her last year and a half was amazing. And
Oh, that's fantastic.
yeah. This is a project that I photographed in Ecuador this year. I went on a free spay and neuter clinic that was organized by an American rescue group. We went to indigenous villages.
Oh, sorry, don't mean it.
Most of the animals there are free roaming, so they don't even have a collar. They never walk on a leash. They're just free to roam.
They're street smart.
They're street smart, and they belong to families, but they're also free to go, and they have a very different life. The people sign up for the spay and neuter clinic. They understand the crisis. They understand that it's very important to sterilize your animal if you want a healthy, safe community. I interviewed all of them, and the stories can be found on my website. But I was really touched by the stories first of this community. A lot of people don't even have a car, and to attend this clinic, you have to commit, and it's a lot of work for the community. You have to pick up people with their dogs, or they have to walk sometimes 1 or 2 hours under the rain to bring the animals. They have to have a leash or some kind of restraint on their animal to participate in the clinic, which means they make this makeshift, harnesses, and they get very creative in how they can tie the animals. And a lot of these dogs have never again worn a leash, so for them it's a very challenging, especially in that village was nobody had a car, and the kids would walk like an hour in the rain to go to school. It was incredible, the stories. And yeah, they use whatever they can find to make niches. And what I love also about these stories is to see how our gender dynamics were being replayed a lot in the relationship between the people and their animals. They kill a lot of females at birth, mostly because they don't want to be bothered with puppies and also with the heat cycles. So a lot of families will tell me she bleeds everywhere on our furniture, so we kick her out in the street when she's in heat, which feeds the problem because then she gets pregnant and we have to deal with puppies. This Luz here with a cat. why a cat? But a cat. She was very touching. She had a very touching story. Her son passed away many years ago, and she got very depressed, and she turned to God, and she found God and the love of God. So I asked her, what do you think God would think of you sterilizing your pets? And she said, I feel bad because I'm going against God's plan and His will, because He has a plan for everyone and we shouldn't interfere. But I hope that He will understand I'm trying to prevent more suffering and that He will forgive me.
Oh,
It was
beautiful.
one of the most powerful stories.
I just became a fan of Ecuador.
It was a beautiful trip. I had such a great time there, and everybody was so committed. You know, we think often people say, oh, communities that don't spay and neuter, they're so irresponsible. But whenever you give them resources, tools, they show up even when it's that difficult, because these people, they have to take time off from work, and they usually work on farms, and like they can't just take a day off.
Oh yeah, no.
And they come and they wait for hours for the animals to go through surgery, and they want to be a part of the process. They call their neighbors, they say, you need to bring your dogs, and everybody rallies, and it's so inspiring to see. And the kids are so excited to be a part of it.
That's so beautiful.
You capture both the whole essence of the person the owners,
Yeah.
and the dogs. Both, probably never been photographed.
Yeah, and also a lot of these dogs were sedated a little bit already.
Because it
So
has
they look a
sedation.
little, because they get pre-sedation before surgery, just to knock them down a little bit. So a lot of the time they were a little sleepy. But also, these are dogs that haven't been exposed to anything, and suddenly they're on a car, they have a leash on, they're getting through all this stuff. They're around a lot of other dogs and people in the space, like it's a lot.
And you're right, some of these people probably have never been photographed.
Or at least not used to
Yeah,
the-
so
to the
they
whole-
were, another thing too is a lot of them were very serious. When I would take the photo, they would take this very serious face. So I asked them, like, why don't you smile? Like, what's this for you? And they say, a portrait is very important. This is how you're going to be remembered. And they want it to be dignified.
Yeah.
And it's funny because here we would have more an idea of like, if you take a photo, you're like, there's something very different.
This is
The
serious.
portrait was important, and I hope to go back and bring some prints with me. A lot of them are on WhatsApp, so I was able to send them the portraits, but
Oh, that's nice.
it was, it's very rare for them to get a proper professional portrait, and it was very special.
I just want to piggyback on all this. That this is from Peru,
Ecuador.
Ecuador.
Mhm.
So I just could picture you going into different countries. This is
Yes.
Ecuador. This is Chile.
I would love to
This
try
is
that.
This is the life.
Yeah,
of the
and I
pet.
want to follow. I think the Spay and Neuter Clinic is great because you get access to people that understand
Mhm.
about pets and have incredible stories. This is the actual fabric that I used for these portraits. It was handmade by women there in Ecuador, and
Yeah.
all the symbols are symbols of the regions and the area where they live. And here you can see on that stool some of the photos from the clinic.
Oh.
In one of the villages, they had never had a clinic done before, so
Yeah.
they didn't really know the process. And there was an old man that brought his dog, and he was so emotional, and he looked at me and he said, "Oh, my dog is dead." And I said, "No, he's not dead. He's just like sleepy for the surgery." He's like, "No, you can tell me. I see he's dead," because the dog looked like that, and
Yeah.
of course it's so intense.
Yes.
So powerful.
I couldn't convince him. I said, "Wait, he's gonna wake up," and he couldn't believe me. And then the dog woke up. I was like, "Oh, thank God," because that would have been awkward.
Right.
Another little cyanotype, so it's the same print with the sun. This one I also bleached and toned with coffee and tea.
Really?
These are broken jaws, but they look like flowers.
And when you put it in there,
And we'll finish, I guess, with this piece. This has been a long tour, so this is one of my favorites. It's also the same system, so it's made with the sun. This is inspired by the Aztec mythology of the dog god Xolotl. So he's a god that has the appearance of a dog. He's super interesting because he's the twin of the sun god, and every night he takes the sun into the underworld to guard him for the night, and he uses the light to guide the souls of the humans deceased into the afterlife. When the new world was created, the sun rose in the sky, and that's our current era, but life was not possible because the sun wouldn't move across the sky. So the gods come together and said, "We need to sacrifice ourselves. Xolotl, why don't you sacrifice yourself?" And he refused, and he got so distressed that he started crying and crying, and his eyes fell out of their sockets. So this is the image that was inspired by that moment of refusing the sacrifice to create life, which for me resonated for me personally. He still got sacrificed later, and then he went to the underworld to retrieve the bones of humanity that had been destroyed, and he helped restore mankind. And they took one of those bones and created the dogs out of those bones. And that became, probably to show it quickly, the Mexican hairless dog came from that. The dogs were gifted to humankind, and the God said, take care of dogs in life, because in death they will help you cross over. Together you will journey 4 years in the underworld. They go through obstacles of rivers of blood and mean spirits and like a lot of obstacles until they reach their final destination, if they've been nice to dogs. So the dogs in those stories always acted as guides and guardians, and they would help you, and if you were bad to them, they might not help you.
And this is Aztec?
So this particular one is Aztec, but in a lot of Mesoamerican
I feel so
culture.
Mexican right now.
Yeah, there's a lot here. There's a one from. Oh no, it's not here. It's over on this other story. There's a story from, I forgot. Maya. So this one says, if a person has been good to dogs during his life, a black dog ferries his soul across the hot river. When an evil spirit called the Pujuk, I don't know if I'm pronouncing this right,
No idea either.
comes to take the soul of a man, the dog suggests to him that he should count hairs on his tail before dawn. If the dog's master has been good to the dog jerks his tail, and the Pujuk loses count of the hair, so he cannot take the soul with him.
Oh.
And so there's a lot of stories like this where the dogs really
Never
help
heard
the
of
souls
it.
cross.
Wow.
You feeling Mexican now too?
And I think that concludes our little long tour, unless you have questions.